This is Gemar Nedarim Daf Mem Tes as we embark on another incredible perek of Meseches Nedarim, a perek, as we'll see, that's going to contain some of the most famous stories in Shas. Stay tuned. But for now, let's begin with the Mishnah on Mem Tes Amud Aleph. Says the Mishnah, Hanoider min hamivushal mutter bitzli. And as we're going to see right away, that the theme of the beginning of the parak is going to be that Nedarim work by the way people talk. That if people respond and considered a certain item to be called A and not B, then only A is being considered and not B, as we will see. So if you're noider min hamivushal, if you make a neder for something which is cooked, you're mutter bitzli, you're allowed to eat something which is not cooked, which is roasted, ubishaluk, and which is undercooked. Amar, case number 2, koinem tavshel sheni tayim. If he says, I'm not going to eat a tavshel, what is a tavshel? So he's aser b'maisa kedera. Anything that is made in a pot, he is forbidden to eat. But he's mutter ba'ava, he's allowed to eat solid foods. And the Gemara is going to explain the reason for these dinim. As well, umutter bebeitza termuta. He's allowed to eat a beitza termuta, a certain type of egg, as we'll see tomorrow. It's cooked 1,000 times in hot, 1,000 times in cold, and then becomes this teeny little egg. Ubedalas harmutza, and he's allowed to eat a dalas, a gourd of harmutza. Case number 3 in the Mishnah. Hanoider mi ma'aser kedeira. If you made a neder from a ma'aser kedeira, in aser ela b'ma'aser rischasa, then what is forbidden? A ma'aser rischasa, that which is prepared in a pot. That which is prepared by rasach, by boiling. Amar koinam hayoyre l'kedeira. If someone says a neder, that which I will not hayoyreid likadera, that which goes into a pot, any time I will not eat, then aser bechol hamisvashlim b'kadera. Then he is forbidden to everything that is cooked in a pot. So we see that everything goes by the way that it's called. So now, before we even go into the Gemara, let's quickly peek at the first Ran. When the Ran comments of Ha'anoider min hamavushal yomuter b'tzli u'b'shalik, says the Ran, why? Because they're not included in the word mivushal. Shalik is bashal, lo bashal, it's not fully cooked. The hiddur shalik nami mashal mivushal, but shalik also is at some level called cooked. Yoiser midak, they mean him called basar. Kabir al seres vein on eser shalik, asura ben eser shalik. Dacha bashal bashal udim nedarim. Here it is. Halach achar lashon b'nei adam, and that is going to be the theme. That is the rule of today's shir. Nedarim, this is really something that brings us all the way back about 2 months ago to Daf Beis, that Nedarim go by Lashon B'nei Adam. Nedarim go by the way people talk. And people don't call something that is partially cooked mivushal. And with that we begin the Gemara. Tanya, we learned in a brayser, Rav Yeshaya Oiser. Says the Gemara, Rav Yeshaya says it's usher to eat sali, even if he said muvushal. Commenting on the first case of the Mishnah that says muvushal, the Mishnah says you're allowed to eat sali. Says Rav Yeshaya, no, it's forbidden. I don't have a proof, but I have an allusion, a zeicha, remembrance. Shenamar says in the Torah, "Vayavashlu es haPesach." I shouldn't say Torah, pasuk in Divrei Yamim says, and they cooked vayivashel b'shul es haPesach b'eish kim mishpat, in fire, as is necessary, as is the mishpat, as the halacha. So although we know a carbon pesach, of course, his sli is roasted, still it's called mivushal. So says the Gemara that included in mivushal is sli. So says the Gemara, and here we're going to bring out this machlokes that we just pointed out. That leima b'hakamifkli. What is the machlokes? What is the debate between Rav Yeshaya and our Mishnah? The Rav Yeshaya savar halachach lashon Torah v'tana dilon savar. So suggests the Gemara, a fundamental machlokes is brewing between our Mishnah and Rav Yeshaya. In our Mishnah, as we pointed out for that first Ran, it goes by Lashon B'nei Adam. And people don't call something cooked sli. Rav Yeshaya is going by Lashon Torah. And the Torah, Divrei Yamim, the Torah would at times refer to something sli as mavushal. Answers the Gemara, loy, that is not the machlekes. The kuli alma, everyone agrees with Nedarim al chalach, lo shavnei adam. Everyone agrees that by Nedarim we go by the way people talk. And yet, so what's the debate between Rav Yishai and the Mishnah? Marki Asrei or Marki Asrei. Each one is going by the way they spoke in the place that he was. But Asrei, the Taldi London, Karle, Sliul, Mavoshal, Karle, Mavoshal. In the place of our Tana, they call Sli, Mavoshal, Mavoshal. But Ba'asr, the Rav Yishai feeling Sli, Kari, Mavoshal. But the place of Rav Yishai, even Sli and roasted, they call Mavoshal. Asks the Gemara, Vakra Nasiv La, Asmachta Ba'alma. Says the Gemara, what do we do with the pasuk? Rav Yishai seemingly quotes a pasuk. Says the Gemara, just an Asmachta. So, okay, we thought we had a fundamental machlekes, and the Gemara comments that we do not. Continues the Gemara, Koinam Tavshil. We're about 8 lines, and we quote the next case in the Mishnah that if someone says that making a neder against a Tavshil, a cooked food, and we said he's only allowed to eat liquidy foods, but he's only not allowed to eat, liquidy foods, but he's allowed to eat solid foods. So now the Gemara is going to explain why this is so. Ask the Gemara, Vami Tavshil Nadar. You're differentiating the Mishnah, which is like solid and not. 1 second. Mitavshil nadar. You said that it's also all cooked foods. Amar Abaye, Aitana, call midi demisachal bei rifta tavshil karile. Our Mishnah, when it says tavshil, what is included in the word tavshil? Anything that is eaten with bread. Things eaten with bread are called a tavshil. V'ha'tanya. Says the Gemara, and this is a raya. This V'atanya is not a kasha, but as we see, the Ran of course points out, similar to what Rashi generally points out, this V'atanya is binichusa. This V'atanya is a raya. Says the Gemara, V'atanya, as we learned in our Braisa, ha'noider min tavshil. So makes a neder 3 lines of the y lines from a tavshil. Also b'chomin tavshil. He's forbidden to eat all types of tavshil of cooked food. V'aser as well. He's forbidden b'tzli u'b'shalik, with roasted and partially cooked foods. Ubim mevoshel, and with fully cooked foods. V'aser, and similarly he's forbidden b'hit riot rakot. And he's forbidden with soft types of riatot, or mushrooms or squash, different types of soft types of veggies. Sha'achulin oichlin, but sha'achaylin oichlin pitan, says the Brisa explicitly. Why? Because these are foods that a chayle eats with bread. So we see in this Brisa, like we're explaining our Mishnah, that when he used the word tavshil refers to something eaten with bread. And that's why something which is liquidy, which could be eaten with bread, that is forbidden. But something which is a salad will not be forbidden. Asks the Gemara on the last narrow line, Aini, is this true? But we learned, Rav Yirmiyah Cholash, Yirmiyah got sick. Oligabehu Asya, a doctor, comes to Rav Yirmiyah last week to heal him. Chaza kara demachas. And the doctor sees a kara, a squash, demachas bebusei, that is lying in his house. He sees some squash lying on the floor. Shavke, the doctor leaves. V'nafak and Amar, the doctor says, Malach Musa es leila din bebeisa. You have the Malach Hamavis, you're inviting into your house by having these dangerous foods. V'ano ayo lasoyo. And you're inviting me in, Yosei, you're inviting me in to heal you? How could that be? So says the Gemara, we have a problem. The Brisa previously taught us that squash is good for a chayla, all things that a chayla eats. Over here, the Brisa is seemingly that squash is some dangerous food. Answers the Gemara on the 3rd Y line, like kasha, ha berekichi, ha be'ashuni. The difference is one is tender, soft squash, which is good for sick people. Ha be'ashuni, hard squash, which is not. Rava bar Ula Amar says, Rava bar Ula, ha be'kara gufei. One is the squash itself, that is bad for you. Ha be'gavei dekara. One is with the inside of the squash, which is good for a person. The Amar Rav Yehuda, as Rav Yehuda taught, luliva de kara bisilka. The luliva of the kara, the inside of the squash, is good to heal you. Luliva de kisna bekotcha. But the inside of the flax is eaten with kutach, is good for healing as well. V'davar zeh aser la'imran, this entity you should never say b'vnei ha'ma'aretz, because we don't want them What's the reason we can't tell Ma'aretz? Because they're going to take all the flax and they're going to eat it from the outsides to heal them, and we're not going to have any more flax on the harvest. So says the Gemara, two different differentiations between the squash. And on the last line, Rav Amar Man, Chaylin. What did the Brisa mean when it says Chaylin eat these items? Rabbanon. It refers to Rabbanon. Torah scholars, they're a little bit weaker. That's the reason why we're saying that they're going to eat this squash. Whereas for other people, it's going to be bad for them. And the Gemara now explains where Rava elsewhere called Talmidei Chachamim Chaylin Rava L'Taimei. Ta'amar Rava, as Rava has taught previously, as we turn over to Memtes and Mebeis, Keman Matzlinan Al Kitziri Ve'al Mirei. According to whom do we daven for the ill, for the chaylin, and for the mirei, and for the sickly? Keman kirav yosi midamar kitzir mirei shmamina ksiri mamish mirei are the rabbanon. And that's the three ways of reconciling the stira, whether squash is good for you, whether squash is not good for you. And the shita of Rava that he refers to Talmidei Chachamim as chaylin is the fact that they're sitting and learning Torah all day. They're a bit weaker than the average person. We continue on Memtesem and Beis with the two dots, 3 lines down, Umutter be'ava, that we learned in the Mishnah that when one makes a neder against this cooked food, as we just finished explaining, it's only things that you eat with bread, but things that you do not eat with bread are going to be permissible. So says the Gemara, Umutter be'ava, you're allowed to eat solid foods, as solid foods are not generally eaten with bread. Explains the Gemara on the 4th line of Memtesem and Beis Mas Nisan, Deloi kebab loi. Our Mishnah does not reflect. Our Mishnah is not the Babylonians. Why is the Mishnah now working with the Babloi? Because Babloi Lamaisa eat even thick entities with their porridge. Da'amar Rav Zira, as Rav Zira has taught, Babloi tipshoi, you foolish Babylonians, lachma belachma, that eat bread with bread. So the Gemara is saying that that's the reason why you can't. That is the reason why, you can't bring a raya from the Babylonians for the simple reason that the Babloi tipshoi are the ones that eat bread with bread, which our Mishnah is not referring to that. Says the Gemara Rav Chisda, Temashel lehoyin, on the 6th line, lahalin nakdana dehutzal. Says Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda was from Bavel. And says Rav Chisda, is it someone that could ask about the wonderful food that they serve in Hutzal? That what? Hadin daisa, this porridge, heichan ma'ali lemichla. This wonderful porridge that we eat with bread, what's the best way? Dechiti v'lachma, wheat porridge with wheat, dechiti with wheat bread, udesari blach with desari, and barley porridge with barley bread. Oidoma dechiti b'desari, desari b'dechiti. What's the right way of eating this porridge? Rava achle b'chasisi. Rava ate the porridge with flour of oven-dried grains, and different eating practices of different people. Now, once we're on the topic of oatmeal, of porridge, comments the Gemara about 12 lines down. The first line is Rabba bar Ravuna Ashched Ravuna. Rabba Ravuna found Ravuna Dekachal Daisa Betzbaasei, that he was eating daisa with his fingers. Amar lei, Rabba Ravuna said to Rabba, Maika Achel Marbi Yadei, what are you doing? What are you eating with your hands? Amar lei, Achi Amar Rav, daisa betzbaasa basim. If you eat daisa, if you eat this porridge with your fingers, basim, that is sweet. V'chol dechein betartin, and certainly you eat with 2 fingers. V'chol dechein betzlas, certainly you eat with 3 fingers. Now, what exactly does this mean? The Mefarshim discuss, but at any rate, it's simply referring to that you're dipping it in and you're eating the porridge. Amar le Rav l'chia barei. So Rav says to Rechia his son, v'chein Amar le Ravuna l'Rabba barei mizamnin loch l'michal daisa ad parsa. Mizamnin loch l'michal daisa. If they invite you to eat daisa ad parsa, Go all the way, travel up until a barsa lemechal bisra ditura, to eat the bisra, the meat of an ox, al ad tlas paris, and you travel 3 parisas. So how far one is going to go in order to eat porridge, as well as in order to eat these other foods. Continues the Gemara about advice on eating your porridge. Amar lei Rav Lachi Barei. One thing that we definitely see, we should just comment, that if it's normal to eat something with your fingers, we see from the Gemara that obviously it's allowed. The incredible Tanaim and Amoraim would never do something which is quote unquote disgusting. And if they were eating this daisa with their fingers, obviously that was the accepted norm, and therefore there's no problem doing that. So Amli Rav L'Chia B'rei V'chein Amli Ravuna L'Rabba B'rei Kol Meidam Loi Tiflat Kamei. Kol Meidam, after anything, Loi Tiflat Kamei Rabach. Don't spit in front of your Rebbe. Levar Min Kara, aside for Kara squash, V'daisa and Porridge, Shein Daimin Lipisilta, which are similar to Lipisilta Shel Avar, like a rod of lead. V'afilu Kamei Shavar Malka Palut. Why? Because if you don't spit these entities out of your mouth, it can be very, very harmful. Therefore, even if you're in front of the Rebbe, even if you're in front of Shavar Malka, when you have it inside of you, you have to get rid of it. Rav Yosef, Rav Yudah, Achad, Ochel, Daisa, Betzvasei. So one of them, as we just quoted, was eating Daisa, this porridge with his fingers. V'chad, Ochel, Behutza. One of them is eating with a hutza, piece of bark, a primitive fork. One who's eating with this fork says one with his fingers. Until when are you going to eat with feed me your filth? It's disgusting. Your fingers are filthy and you're sticking them in, and I have to deal with your filthy fingers. So Amar Lei, so he responds, the one that's eating with the fork, for how long are you going to feed me your spittle? Because why? Because the saliva that's on your bark, you're sticking your the utensil back in, you're double dipping, and I have to eat from your dirty fork. Rav Yehuda, Rav Shimon, Aisu Kamayu, Be Lusfayun. Rav Yehuda and Rav Shimon were fed blufsin, which is a type of figs. Rav Yehuda, Achal, Rav Shimon, Lo Yachal, in the first white line. Amrei Rav Yehuda, my time lo achal mar. Amrei Rav Shimon, elu ein yotzim ibnei me'ayin kol ikar. These items, they never leave your intestines. They harm you. Amrei Rav Yehuda, kol shekein shenismach aleyan. So certainly you should eat them. Why? Nismach aleyan l'machar. It's going to fill you up, and you're going to be full until tomorrow. You should for sure eat them. Give out. Continues the Gemara. Rav Yehuda, more stories of Yosef coming to Rav Tarfin. Amar Rav Tarfin, Hayoim panecha zehuvim. So Rav Tarfin says, today your face is shining. Amar lei emesh. Yesterday yotza avdach l'sadeh. Yesterday your servants went out to the field. Ve'eviu lanu, and they brought me tardin, this beet. V'achilna b'lei melech. I ate it without salt. If I would have eaten it with salt, my face would certainly be radiant. And finally, one last story for the day. We're 6 lines into the white lines. Amrahi maternisa. A certain Roman noblewoman said to Rav Yehuda, Mara v'Ravi. Mare v'Ravi. You're a Moira, a Rabbi, v'Ravi, and you're also a drunk. So how are you allowed, if you're one that paskin shaylas, you're asking Rav Yehuda, how can you become drunk? Amar Allah, Hemnusa biyada. Yehuda says, Hemnusa bida dahi itza. The Hemnusa, by the honor, by the covet of that woman, I would be swearing falsely, Timna, if I tasted any wine. You're right. I'm a Rav, I'm a Paisik, so I don't drink aside for the 4 cups of wine, Kiddush Avdallah, and Pesach night. V'chograni sidai min ha-Pesach aratzeres. So because the wine I drink, I have to, my head hurts, he had a headache from Pesach all the way to Shavuos, the incredible tsar that he went through in order to fulfill the mitzvah of Dalet Concise. But certainly he did not drink, certainly he was not drunk when he passed in Shilas. And we'll pick it up from the Chachmas Adam Tayir Panav and the next year, B'siyata Dishmaya.